As I had envisioned, there is no reason to take your foot off the pedal here. U.S. soccer, the snowball effect is in full motion. The September window well behind us. The news about Mauricio Pochettino, him setting foot here in the United States. And now JT Batson, one of the lead executives for U.S. soccer, making the rounds on a couple prominent podcasts, making some more media appearances to give us more detail on how Mauricio Pochettino's deal was done and how we move on from here. And that is a very interesting development as we look at this player pool. So we're going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about the player in the U.S. player pool who is having an amazing start to the season and may have just had the best 2 weeks, the most important 2 weeks for an American player ever, and how that is going to help Mauricio Pochettino set his groundwork, his framework, whatever you want to call it, when he takes over for reals October the 12th. And then again, a few days later, with two big matchups. Not a lot of time here in 2024 and 2025. We'll have some tournaments. We'll have the Gold Cup. And then we're in World Cup mode. Do not blink because it is going to be here before you know it. So we will talk about the latest news around Mauricio Pochettino, JT Batson, Christian Pulisic here on the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast. We are joined by Henry Bushnell of Yahoo Sports. Great one with Alexi Lawless there, so go through the library where all podcasts are available. Like and subscribe us here. We'll have another podcast out this week, so we got you covered. Make the Soccer OG a big part of your daily, weekly routine, and I will be here in all my splendor with my great fashion sense. I know the shirt matches the background. What can I tell you? What can I tell you? I can't just wear all these bright colored shirts all the time, so I got to mix it up here. So yeah, like and subscribe. Let's get into it. We'll talk about Christian Pulisic because I don't want to shortchange what we are seeing him, and in particular in the Derby della Madonnina, the Milan derby, which to me, and I can argue this with everyone, we talk about the greatest soccer rivalry on the planet. To me, it is hard to argue that that isn't number one. For it to be a big soccer rivalry, it has to be two teams in the same city. It has to be two teams that split a city in half potentially. And if you play in the same stadium, even better. You add the history of these two clubs and the players and everything. And most soccer purists, I would think, would agree with me that Inter Milan is the top. And look, I'm not here sugarcoating Italian soccer. I don't really enjoy the product these days. I used to, but I don't do it now. So I'm not going to sit here and say Italian soccer is great, like my boy Matteo Bonetti. But I will say this is the biggest soccer rivalry with maybe Boca River, Celtic Rangers, and a few others right behind it. So I'll get that off my chest, but we'll talk about he was amazing. It was stunning to watch what he did in just a massively important result for Milan, the manager Paulo Fonseca, the Milan players, and certainly for Christian Pulisic, who gets another man of the match, which he's getting all the time. But I'm going to try to do this in chronological order. I wanted to talk about these JT Batson media appearances. He was on State of the Union with Alexi Lawless. He was on Offside with Taylor Twellman's podcast. And we want to hear from Matt Crocker. He has been the mysterious figure here. We want to hear from Matt Crocker, and I think he will be making the rounds here at some point. And we want to hear from Mauricio Pochettino all the time. And Cindy Parlow. We want to hear from Pochettino as much. And hopefully he does that with, I spoke to Henry Bushnell on my podcast, and JT Batson was mentioning that he was house hunting, talking about Mauricio Pochettino in Atlanta. There was some tongue-in-cheek there, but we expect him to spend some time here. A lot of interesting stuff. So I encourage you to listen to those podcasts. A lot of interesting stuff of how it was done, the story about the wine, and how we got from point A to point B, and were able to close the deal, how we were growing the soccer economy, how we were getting benefactors, as U.S. Soccer has had, to be able to get the $6 million price tag annually to sign Mauricio Pochettino. You think about the National Training Center, Arthur Blank, dropping a big ton of coins. So there's a lot of money involved in U.S. Soccer. I mean, we should celebrate that. U.S. Soccer is not just the ma and pa. JT Batson, to me, came off as a very compelling guy. A guy, the cliche that you would like to have a beer with, or a Cabernet or a Malbec, as what you will have it. So it's He seems, I mean, this is not ineptitude, which we always compare U.S. soccer. And I'm not going to tell you that there's not been ineptitude in U.S. soccer. But, Matt Crocker and Sidney Parlacone, these are impressive people by and large. And JT Batson as well. So I really liked what I heard. I was very comfortable listening to him. And I think he was pretty upfront and honest with these answers. So he talked about how it got done. To me, the thing that stood out, because we're really curious about the time issue for Mauricio Pochettino. How much time does he have to look at the U.S. player pool and get closer to selecting a team, because he doesn't have a lot of time? How big is that selection process? Well, in one of the meetings, they met with Mauricio Pochettino. He pulled out a laptop and said, all right, we've already begun the process with my team. And he has an incredible team that is going to help him vet these players, cast a wide net, filter it out to come out with whatever 23, 25 players that will eventually play or participate in a World Cup for the United States in the summer of 2026. He doesn't want to shortchange this. He wants to look at as many players as possible. I got the intel, and I've said it on this past, I think the roster, the current player pool that he wants to see could be 70 or 80 players. I've been told it's a lot less than that. Some 50 or so players are on the short list to make it there. And whoever makes the October camp, I think it seems like he wants to get a good look at his first team. He's not going to call in guys in October. He's going to call in his best team, I think. And then he's going to take it from there. But if you're not on that October camp, I would imagine you should be a little bit worried. You want to be on those October camps because the time is now. Here in September, over 3 weeks, making phone calls, doing Zoom calls, looking at tape to see who is going to be the guy. He has a good idea, I imagine, of who those guys are. But if it's 50 guys, I think this is probably bad news for the MLS crowd. I think if it's 50, you can almost come with a list of 50 of the European-based players. And I think the MLS crowd, under this circumstance, is probably on that 50, I would say 8 are on MLS. And how many make the final roster? Maybe 2. And that even goes to Liga MX, of which you can think of Brandon Vasquez and Cade Cowell, who would be good options. And there are a lot of other American dual nationals in Mexico that I think should get a sniff for the national team. But if I'm hearing 50 players, you got to trim it. We're trimming it. He's focusing on this, so it's going to be thank you, but no thanks. As I've talked to so many coaches in the past, they get an idea of a player immediately. I had a conversation with Tab Ramos, who was going through young players. And I say, when do you know that guy has something? He goes, immediately. I go, don't you want to? Maybe he had a bad day. He goes, nope, I know. So I think most coaches are that way. Some will give you a second or third chance, but they see it and go, that's it. That's why these guys are coaches, because they have a trained eye and they have a trained gut. And they can get that feeling. And they're more right than they're ever wrong about player personnel issues. There was an interview with Zach Steffen, and the way he phrased it, he goes, I want to get back to the U.S. national team. I hope Pochettino remembers me from Man City. That says to me that the MLS players know they are on the outside looking in. And I may have said something differently, but I think Pochettino is going to really give the European-based players the benefit of the doubt because they are in Europe, and they've earned that. I think there are some players in MLS that are specific that could help, including Zach Steffen, who I believe is one of those 6 or 7 players in MLS that will get, is part of that 50 and may get a call-up. I think he might get a call-up in October because he's been good. The other ones, maybe John Tolkien, maybe Patrick Schulte is certainly one guy. But those are these guys that I think can push forward and hope more than anything to make that team. But 50 is not a big number. And Pochettino's, I respect he doesn't want to mess around with 60, 70, 80 guys. I think that's wishful thinking. It may have been 80 guys, and he's whittled it down in advance of those meetings with U.S. Soccer to 50. He's already done the work, which I think we should all be thrilled about. It gives you the feeling that he's been around since the end of summer. like August. Awesome. So he is in, and that is what stood out about JT Batson. I want to hear more from JT Batson. He's compelling. So now let's move in to who's going to be the number one of those 50 players. And there's no question about it. It's Christian Pulisic, who in the September camp, I noticed something about him. He was salty. It was bothering him the direction the national team was going. And that may have been put into the bank to why he is playing so well in his second season with AC Milan. Milan aren't playing great. They're not. They had a great win. If they didn't, I thought they were going to get thumped by Inter. And if they lose that game, they're in like 12th, 13th place in the Serie A. They lost badly to Liverpool in the Champions League. And there is a lot of concern. And there's no way that Christian Pulisic is feeling good about his performances if Milan aren't getting the results. He wants success. He wants to win. And that's why he's so important for Milan and so important for U.S. soccer. As we look at what he's been able to do, Paulo Fonseca is the new manager there. And they have an awful defense that played much better against Inter. Paulo Fonseca is very highly respected. He's a good manager. Maybe he's not the right fit for Milan, although the Inter victory showed that he has some good ideas. And his ideas, the centerpiece, is Christian Pulisic, who is now 26. He has 3 goals in the Serie A in 5 games. He had 12 goals in the Serie A. He's on a trajectory to beat that, maybe 15, 20 goals. Has a goal in the Champions League. He's taking set pieces. He has a couple assists off corner kicks. It's really remarkable, the output from Christian Pulisic that we're seeing. I don't want to be the prisoner of the moment, and I don't want to sit here and say that, go through my memory banks and say we've never seen it. Maybe we have. But Christian Pulisic has broken through every ceiling for American soccer, winning the Champions League final, being this huge $60 million transfer. And now he's doing this. He's getting man of the match over and over again. This is not an accident. He is the key player for Paulo Fonseca. He is the guy that moves into the different positions. Not Rafael Leao. None of the other Milan players, who I will say are not flooded with talent. It is Milan, but this isn't the Inter talent, and the Serie A talent isn't the talent that you see in Bayern or Real or Barcelona or in the Premier League. So he has that. It's a good fit. But they're in the Champions League. He scored a goal against Liverpool. I mean, that's amazing. And then the goal against Inter, not only early, impressive, is just showing that I think it's going to be a weekly routine. And this is great news for us because you need the foundation. You need that player. And I'm sure Mauricio Pochettino's like, this guy, lock him in. And I've said in the past, I think it's a short list of guys that are locked in. It's going to be 2, 3, or 4 guys. More will get locked in as Pochettino gets a better look at them. But Pulisic, and he said great things about Pulisic, and he acknowledged that he was a big fan of him at Dortmund and Chelsea. The thing about Pulisic that's really impressed me, it's not just the goals, it's not just the assists, it's the all-round game. He is winning ball. He is tracking back. He's always in the lineup. He is doing the defensive duties. He is aggressive. He has a great attitude. And he has become a big leader as well. It's everything. He has become a complete footballer, which we could have never said about him in years past. There was always a flaw or an issue or he was in playing time. Those days are over. And maybe Milan isn't his last European destination. Maybe he does go to a top club because there's a lot of teams in that group of clubs I mentioned, maybe a top Premier League club that could use a guy playing like this. He's a modern footballer that can adjust and adapt. I'm just really showcasing how important this is for the direction he has had. So great news there. We have an idea about the roster, and we know Christian Pulisic is going to be at the top of the list. It was a good week for Americans abroad. Brendan Aronson with an assist. Chris Richards started again for Crystal Palace. We thought he would get less playing time. Not the case. Gianluca Busio scored for Venezia. Flo Balogun got his first goal. That's huge. He may not start for Monaco, but I still think he's going to be in that inner circle. Malik Tillman scored a couple goals for PSV. We need to get him to a bigger club because he has been sensational. Tim Weah's playing. Weston McKennie's starting for Juventus. Jedi Robinson is a high standard. Feeling better about the player pool. Obviously feeling better about the coach. So let us get us going. And you can't miss a Christian Pulisic game, and he's got Champions League on the horizon. Let's go and stay right here on the Soccer OGs. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Like and subscribe us here. We'll join you again next week because there is never a dull moment.